I don't even know where to start, so I guess I'll just talk about an issue most people don't really want to talk about, which is like, how do you feel about things and how do things affect you, and like what changes in your life that all of a sudden you decide, I don't want to do this anymore, and now I want to do that. Or, I always thought once in my life that when you were little, you wanted to be something when you grew up. Like you had this idea of what you were going to be when you grew up, and then all of a sudden, somehow life changes that, or you're told that in order to fit into society or in order to get a good paying job, you got to sacrifice that. You just got to do what you got to do and fall in line. But if you look at some of the most successful people throughout history, they didn't fall in line. They didn't do any of that. They just forged their own path, and it's never this straight line that all of a sudden shoots up to success. It looks more like this, more like an EKG, up and down. There's lots of downs. And so I kind of feel like for me, that's what living is like. Sometimes there's downs, there's a lot of downs, but then when the ups, it feels that much better when you get it. But I guess I really just wanted to highlight just specifically like what made someone decide to get from one place to another. So for me, I guess I could just talk about, for me, it was probably the worst day of my life. I can actually pinpoint what the worst day of my life was, and I could tell you exactly in detail what that was like. So just a little bit of background for me, like, I was in a relationship previously. I was married, and we were young, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you're going to be a father. So I wasn't prepared for that at 20, 23, 24 years old. I wasn't ready. I don't even think it was that. I was probably 23. I wasn't really ready for it, but all of a sudden it was a reality for me. And so I was, getting on board with that, and all of a sudden decided to go, like full balls to the walls. Like, this is happening, this is amazing, and it didn't take. So she ended up having a miscarriage, and I could probably go into detail on that one and tell you exactly what the office looked like, what the doctor looked like, what the words on the wall were. I think it was the worst day of my life at the time. And so that's not what this story is about. This story is actually about a day worse than that. So a couple years later, had another miscarriage. A couple years later, the third one looks like it's solid. This third pregnancy looks like everything's falling in line. It's riding down. I said, man, I had just gotten out of the Army. I was in the Army. I had just gotten out of active duty. I was still in the reserves. And now I'm looking at I've got my first job, civilian side. I'm like doing this contracting thing, because that's what people do, I guess, when they get out of the military, when they're in my field. And so after getting out, I said, okay, what do I do now? Like, I got to buy a house. Like, I was going through the motions. Like, this is what I was supposed to do. I was going to buy the house now. I was going to, we were going to have the place for the, white picket fence or whatever. And so we went house hunting, got our place. And 6 months into my first gig, baby's on the way, 3 months in or something like that. And I remember going to work. I had just gotten a promotion. Like, I had been promoted for like maybe a couple weeks. So I was promoted to team lead. And all of a sudden people were getting cut on the contract. I thought it was safe. I just got promoted. It should be fine, right? So I guess what had happened was I walked into my office, never forget. I walked in. As soon as I walked into the office, I sat down. I wasn't even there like maybe 25 minutes. Logged in on my computer. I'm sitting there doing my thing. And all of a sudden I get this phone call. And so I pick up the phone, and it was my ex-wife. She said, I lost it. She was screaming, crying, so she needed to go to the hospital. I said, oh man. So I hang up the phone. No hesitation. I'm out the office. I'm bolting, right? So as soon as I'm heading out the door, my boss, whose office is right there, he goes, hey, Paul, can you come in for a second? I walked in. I said, oh. As soon as I got into the door, he goes, I'm sorry. Door shuts behind me. And I said, what the hell? I slide a piece of paper over, pink slip. So the contract, we lost the contract on a rebid, and everybody had to go bye-bye. And that meant me too. So I just kind of really couldn't deal with that. So I started talking. It was all Charlie Brown to me. I was like, wow, wow, wow. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't have time for this. So I walked out. I was like, I'm just, whatever. I'll sign all these papers later. I really can't deal with this. Like, my wife's in the middle of having a miscarriage. Two guys are right there. So it's like, so they didn't say anything. I got up, left, and I decided that I was just gonna get in the car and go. And I don't even remember thinking. I think it was just an auto drive. Just so I take her to the hospital and we do all that stuff. And it was kind of one of those things where I realized, holy crap, I now don't have a means to pay for the house, and that I got to put the kid in anyway. So I was like, what am I going to do? I had to figure it out. But I really wasn't worried about that. The next step was just figuring out what was going on right now. The next couple of days was kind of a haze. I don't remember anything being too crazy. I remember it just kind of being like, crap, we've already done this twice. Like, I guess it's just the way it is. And I just trying to focus on, I guess, finding a new job. And man, it wasn't even like 4 days later that my ex-wife decided she was out. She decided she needed the whole thing or none of it. And so it was none of it. So she left, and there I was, signing for this house. I have the keys in my hand. I was closing on this house that I could now not afford because I didn't have the job to pay for the house for the family that I didn't have anymore. So I moved in, and I was in this empty house thinking, what the hell am I going to do? I can't even pay for this. I had no options. Everybody told me, sell the house, get out of the deal, something. Like, there had to be something I could do, back out of it. Like, and I just remember sitting in my room just over there. It's a fireplace there. It's electric, so you hit the button. It's just not a real fire. It's just an electric fire. But I remember sitting there and thinking in the room, I was in the dark, I was all by myself, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I just kind of grabbed some pieces of paper and I just spread it out in front. And I just realized I needed to start writing down where I was. It's like a freaking panic attack. So I wrote down what was happening to me. And then with the other pieces of paper, I started writing down the possibilities of what could happen from that moment on. And I realized that it was completely open to me. At that point, I realized it was like a book. It was like a story that I could write any way I wanted. That I wasn't tacked on to this thing. That I wasn't beholden. I wasn't weighed down by something that wasn't of my own doing. From that point on, I could reshape it any way I wanted. No matter what happens to you, you can reshape your reality any way you want. You just have to realize that life is going to happen. And it's how you react to it that's important, and how fast you react to it too. So it was in that moment that I just decided that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to crumble. I was already at rock bottom. There was nowhere else but up. And I made plans. I started that night. I started applying for jobs. Like, I threw my resume to everyone. I applied my job to every job everywhere. I started looking for options for renting out the other rooms in the house. I was like, I'm not losing this place. It's not gonna happen. I worked very hard for this, and I'm not just gonna take a tumble. And I didn't. This is I was in 2013, I think. It is now 2017. I've been living here ever since. So didn't lose it. I made arrangements. Like, I had I had a relative move in, and I had a roommate. I'll tell you about those stories. That's a totally different thing. But I had a roommate move in, and I had another relative move in, and basically we just shared rent. We were roommates and relatives, and made it work for a while. And then eventually I found somebody else to share my life with, and my son here, and we have a family here in this house, and it's a completely different thing now. And it's amazing to see where I was, vice where I could have been, vice where I am, and even so much where we're going. All of us where we're going. And so it's a learning curve. Every day you go through something different. Every day you go through, it's you got to figure it out as you go along. And so sometimes those things remind you of how fragile everything around you is, but how strong you are. Just because everything else is fragile doesn't mean you have to be. You can take it with a grain of salt and just go. You say, all right, look, I got knocked down, but you know what? It's not about getting hit. It's about how many hits you can take and keep moving forward. I think Rocky said that. But it's true. I think it's true. Absolutely. I wouldn't be in the mindset that I am had I not gone through those things. So I think it's important. And I don't think sometimes we realize that stress is important, good stress, or how we deal with stress. You take those things and you learn from them. And I hope that inspires somebody. I hope that somebody can take this, listen to that and say, man, all right, that's pretty rough. Because I remember sitting in a classroom and people were talking about how they cope with stress, and I was like, I don't even want to deal with this. And I think I was really just being negative because I don't really like talking about those things. Like it's not something that it's easy for most people to talk about. And so that was a very hard period in my life. I think that was after the lowest point, at least then. I mean, I hope I never get that low again, but it was a low point. And so I think they were discussing it in this class, and we were talking about that. And I was like, whatever. I blew it off. And then finally I realized, man, I was being a jerk. And so I kind of raised my hand and I was like, look, let me go more into detail on why I was kind of avoiding this subject and didn't want to talk about it. And I told him the same thing. Let me tell you a story about the absolute worst day of my life. And there was a guy I didn't get along with in that class. I don't remember for what reason. Like, for some reason, I guess he just didn't like me. And he came up to me afterwards and popped over a bottle of Jameson. He was like, take some shots? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Me and that guy ended up bonding that night. It was the most ridiculous thing. Like, we just got completely hammered together, and it's like you would have never expected it. And it was just one of those things where you don't realize that everybody else is going through a struggle. And sometimes we don't want to admit that we're going through struggles because it's hard to admit that we have moments of weakness. But I think there's strength in that. If you can admit that you're in a moment of weakness, but you can still climb out of it, there's strength in that. If you crumble, then, that's a different conversation. But if you can admit that you're weak, and you admit and recognize it and say, I'm going to figure out how to get out of this, or I'm going to keep trying to get out of it, or I'm not going to stop until I get out of it. And it is what it is. And I think that was just important. I don't know why this was kind of therapeutic for me, but I guess I needed to do that. And so I just wanted to address that, I guess, in this way. And it's important to highlight those things, especially when you're understanding where you're going and when you're changing one aspect of your life to another. So I apply that in all the things that I'm doing. I'm working on a lot of different things, and I'm not going to get into those details yet because the channel is going to keep focusing on those things. And basically, I want to document the trials and tribulations leading to where we're going. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself, start talking too much into detail about those things. I'm just going to say things are coming, and gone through the process. I've gone through several different things in a costume shop before. I've done an online shop. I've just done different types of work. I started my own business doing consulting, and the first time I tried it, I really didn't try hard and I didn't like it. And then now I realize that it's much better because doing marketing and doing those types of things for businesses and helping those businesses grow, it helped me to understand that I had all these ideas that I wanted to do so many different things, and I realized they don't all need to be my thing. I like helping other people do their thing, or just learning from other people and also contributing to them learning. So I realized that the environment that I was in was actually something that I was good at, and also something that I appreciated. So I do private consultation for government work, and I do marketing and just social media analysis and a bunch of other things. But again, not going to get into that. I just wanted to highlight that story and just tell you how I climbed out of that thing, and I just thought it was therapeutic. And I hope if one person got something out of that, then great. If not, then I don't even know why you're still watching this video. But anyway, it takes a little bit for me to get in the mojo of recording, because sometimes it's something personal like that. It's a different vibe than something else where you're just going to it with a plan. I just kind of wanted to. I didn't have a plan. I just walked in here and said, it's something that we need to talk about, or maybe just I need to talk about. And maybe this was just for me, but I hope that somebody out there could see this and benefit from it in some way. Anyway, if you like what you saw, if you liked anything that was good, I don't even know. It's one of those things. The button's there. You know where it is. I don't know. You can see it. It's on your screen. Hit it. So again, see what happens.